I'm here today with the Lord Alf Dubs over a Zoom video call. He is now a patron for The Other Side of Hope magazine, which we are very happy for. Alf is a great advocate of refugee rights, especially campaigning for the safe passage of unaccompanied refugee children. And I would love to start the interview with that. And just know a bit more about your current campaigns.
Right. Well, on the side of the current campaigns, I think it's really, this particular thing started in 2016, just after the large number of refugees fled Syria. Now, so in 2016, we heard that there were 95,000 unaccompanied child refugees somewhere in Europe. 10,000 had gone missing, according to Interpol. Shocking that children should go missing. And so an immigration bill was going through Parliament, and talking about it with friends in the Commons, I put down an amendment to say that we should take 3,000 of the unaccompanied child refugees. That's to say ones that didn't have family in Britain. And those children were mainly in northern France, in what was then the jungle, in Calais, or on the Greek islands, or some of course in Italy. And that amendment, to cut a long story short, the amendment passed the Lords by a big majority. Theresa May met me, asked me to see her, and tried to persuade me to withdraw the amendment. I said, why? We can't turn our backs on children sleeping in the jungle in Calais, children vulnerable to traffickers, to criminality, drugs, prostitution, and so on. And she said, if we take these children, others will follow. Well, we couldn't agree on that. I said, we can't turn our backs on these. So the amendment passed the Lords, big majority, went to the Commons, slightly defeated, went back to the Lords. We had to change the wording and drop the figure of 3,000 for technical parliamentary reasons. So it was an open-ended commitment. And then, and then what happened was this, that public opinion suddenly woke up to all this. They realized what was going on. They'd seen these dreadful pictures on our television screens of dinghies sinking, people drowning in the Mediterranean. Alan Kurdi, a little Syrian boy, drowned on the Mediterranean beach. And locally, all over the country, groups were set up to support refugees. And that brought pressure to bear on government supporting MPs. We'd always tried to make it a non-political party thing, but clearly most of the problems were the government supporters. And they that brought more pressure to bear. And the government then, Theresa May asked me to see her again, and she said they proposed to accept the amendment. They then did something which I thought was shabby a bit later. They said, we limit the number to 480. I said, why? And they said, because local authorities can't find any more foster families to take the children. And I said, that's absolute nonsense. Together with NGO, Safe Passage, I work with, among others, we discovered that having contacted local authorities, we found immediately about 15 or 1,600 places for children. So that was the government being negative about that. And eventually took the 480 and put a stop to the scheme. I should add, there was a second amendment I had, and that was under a European Union treaty called the Dublin Treaty. And a part of that said that a child refugee in one EU country can apply to join family relatives in another. So a Syrian boy in France could apply to join an uncle or brother or family in Birmingham. And I got an amendment through that the government should continue to negotiate with the EU that provision would remain even after we left the EU. That went through, and then the next bit of legislation, the government withdrew it. I've tried to get both amendments for children that don't have family here, as well as children that do have family here. I've tried to get them through and been foiled by the larger government majority now in the Commons. And I'm hoping to have another go when the present Borders Bill goes through. It's just started its second reading in the Commons. I hope my friends in the Commons will try and get amendments down, and we'll try and get amendments down in the Lords to see if we can restore the right of refugee children. That's an awful lot there. Could I just add one other thing? That throughout my visits to refugee camps. I've been to Jungle or Calais 3 or 4 times. I've been to Greek islands. So one of the things that has most humbled and impressed me has been the young volunteers from this country, not only this country, but mainly from this country, who've gone to work in the refugee camps, or what's left of the refugee camps, giving food and clothing to refugees. And they are terrific people. They are the unsung heroes of our age. They don't get much publicity, but they deserve an awful lot of thanks because of the great work they're doing.
Thank you for all your work with in regards to refugee children. I mean, that is amazing. So in terms of your work advocating for refugees and so on, why would you say, as someone who knows a lot about refugee life, what does project like The Other Side of Hope magazine bring to that? And how is it beneficial, not only for refugees, but also the wider public that will read the magazine and what the refugees and immigrants write?
Well, first, let me congratulate you on your initiative. I think it's a great idea. It's very imaginative, and congratulations, I say, on doing it. The other side of hope. Well, I think, first of all, you are giving a voice to refugees, and I think that's most important. A lot of us talk about refugees, but refugees should have the right to speak for themselves, to tell their stories, to explain what happened to them, what they're about, and how they're settling in a new country. So I think that's important, and I hope some of that will wash over onto the wider population, because it's my experience that if one explains to people in this country what these refugees have been through, what their shocking experience has been. One example is a Syrian boy said to me he'd seen his father blown up by a bomb in front of him in Aleppo or Damascus. Terrible things to happen. And the young people, they've traveled a long way, they've missed out on education, long, frightening journeys with traffickers. All of these stories have to be told so that people in this country can understand what happened and why it is the right thing to have child refugees come here and why we should support them.
My question is, since the time that you came here back in 39, how have things changed for refugees?
Well, in 38, 39, Britain took 10,000 child refugees on kinder transport from Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia. And although there was some opposition at the time, reading the Hansards, the parliamentary records, there wasn't that much, and that worked. Now, in the post-war period, I think we were quite accepting of refugees initially. For example, when I was chief executive of the Refugee Council, we had we with the Red Cross were asked by the Home Office to find reception centres for about 4,000 Bosnians who'd fled those terrible concentration camps, Serb concentration camps during the Bosnian War. And there wasn't much opposition there. People saw what they'd been through, they'd seen the photographs, and they accepted it. But gradually things got a bit tougher. But I think two things really changed it. One is when we have governments that, unlike the Bosnian situation, where the government said we're having several thousand of these come to Britain, governments are now being hostile and they're opposing refugees. We've seen it with the present Home Secretary, but even before her. That sends a signal to people that if our government thinks these people shouldn't be coming here, then we don't want them here. And that has changed public opinion. I think the referendum also, the Brexit referendum also changed the mood, because when Boris Johnson said that if we don't leave the EU, 70,000 Turks are poised to enter Britain, that was a complete lie. But of course, this thing about take back control was a way of saying we're going to keep people out of this country. So those things together, but particularly if senior people in government make hostile comments about refugees, then that sends an adverse message around the country. And that's why your initiative is important, because it seeks to correct that adverse message coming from the government. And that's why we've all got to try and keep public opinion on our side. That's been my belief. We've got to get public opinion supporting the idea. We can't take every refugee, or even every child refugee. We can take our share of those that particularly those that have reached Europe. And so I think public opinion is crucial, and I think we have to fight to get public opinion on our side. But it is adverse comments by senior politicians that have poisoned the atmosphere.
And building up on that, do you think that we have a lot of hope to change that public opinion?
Well, we have to, first of all, one of the things I always say to refugees when they ask me, I say, look, you've got to believe in yourselves. As people believe in yourselves, I had to learn to believe in myself when I came as a child refugee. You've got to believe in yourselves. And then we have to believe in the cause of refugees, that people are fleeing from war, violence, persecution, threats to their lives and so on. We have to believe that it is right and proper, the United Nations back us, right and proper, that we should give safety to people who are fleeing. And I think we have to believe in ourselves that we can do that. Now, it's going to be a tough battle. The government is hostile, and the government's new legislation that they're planning is hostile. But we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to carry the flag for refugees and help refugees to carry their own flag as well.
My last question, to end it on a positive note. I have had a lot of people who have inquired about submitting to our magazine, who come from refugee or immigrant backgrounds. And a lot of them have said that they are happy to have a platform where only refugees and immigrants can submit to 2 of our sections, because they don't feel that they can compete with English people. Would you have anything to say about that?
Oh, look, of course they can compete. Look, language is a key thing. I came to Britain. I spoke Czech and German, but I only spoke 2 or 3 words of English. Language is a key thing to opening doors. But I don't think refugees should sell themselves short. Of course, even if you're the other side of hope is intended mainly for refugee voices, I don't think refugees should say they have to be sheltered. I think they have a good, important story to tell. I've heard refugees speak. I've seen what some of them have written. They are brilliant, they are positive, and they engage. And I don't think any of the refugees should say that they can't compete. As long as they get on top of the English language. And as I said earlier, I think refugees have to believe in themselves. Now, it's not for me to lecture them to believe in themselves, but I do say, please believe in yourselves, because doors will open to you, a lot of good doors, and the other side of hope is one important door that will be open to you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I don't have any more questions. Do you have anything else to say at all?
Well, I don't know. I think you've given me a chance to say everything, except to say again, congratulations on your initiative. Let's hear from the refugees. I've been to events where refugees have written short stories and all sorts of things. These are all very important. And as I say, a voice for the people who we're talking about, their voices are very important. And they should be heard. And the other thing is, I've said a lot of them, they say to me, of course, what they want to do is to make a contribution to this country. They want to make a contribution to their local communities, so they're being very positive about what they're setting out to do. So all I can say is that they have to be given a chance through language training and other things to make a contribution. And then perhaps the last thing is just to say, I hate this word, but I have to say we have to help them to normalize. You know, they don't want to be they don't want to be like museum pieces. They want to be like ordinary people. And sports and other activities where they can engage are good and positive. And so we have to give them every opportunity to take part in our local communities and behave like ordinary human beings, to help them overcome the terrible journeys they've had and the terrible difficulties they experienced before they fled their countries.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to publishing in October, so we'll be in touch as well. But yeah, thank you for meeting me today. Everything you've said was wonderful, and it really spoke to me personally as well, so I'm sure it will speak to everyone that will see this video. Thank you.